Hai, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh kepada kelas 3C. Okay, so hari ini kita akan sambung presentation kita. Semua beres ke tu?
Beres,
Beres, madam.
Yes, madam.
Semangatlah kamu semua ni. Okay, seronok ke ni? Dah week ke berapa dah kita ni?
12, madam.
Ya, okay, so berapa group lagi yang tak present?
Dua.
Dua je. So hari ni satu grup, minggu depan satu grup ke macam mana?
Kalau sempat 2 grup terus boleh ke, madam?
Boleh, takut kamu lah yang tak siap.
Dah siap dah.
Ya, Aiden okey je. So Aiden kan bukan duduk apa orang kata. Aiden nak dengar je. Takut orang lah nak prepare lah. Aiden tak kisah sebab kita macam banyak masa yang terlonggar lagi ni. Okey, boleh je. Kejap Aiden nak tengok dalam ni. Nampak ke yang Aiden present ni? Alright, group assignment. Dah buat ke belum ni semua ni? Dah letak dah borang? Jangan tengok, ni dah siap. Ni grup ni pun dah siap. So, grup mana lagi? Itu kita buat macam mana? Campaign format. Macam mana kita nak boldkan semua ni? Macam mana? Kamu semua tahu tak? Bukan ni, bukan. Macam mana kita nak boldkan semua ni? Boldkan kuning. Okay, dah ada pun. Okay, group pasal election process in Malaysia. And then, election commission. So, which one kita nak tengok dulu Maybe kita nak tengok pasal election process dululah. Okay, tapi sebelum tu kita nak tengok pasal laporan lah ni. Okay. Okay, election commission. Mana satu lagi ni? Election commission dah. Satu lagi election process. Mana Dapat ke belum? Grup Maisara, Wan Sumayah dah. Grup Idham dah buat belum yang borang ni? Tak ada ni mana tengok.
Ada tapi tak upload je.
Okey lah, upload lah. Yang ni Maisara ni grup apa ni? Grup election process ke election commission?
The function.
Election commission.
Election, okay. So kita tengok dulu lah election commission. So for the time being, grup 7 boleh ke letakkan borang sebab nanti senang Meda nak guna, nak buat. Okay. Sekejap. Alright. Aduh lah. Mana tadi? WhatsApp kena ni. WhatsApp kena delete ni. Takut apa? Dia jadi stop presenting. Okay, ready class? Okay, nampak tak?
Nampak?
Okay semua, kita tengokkan presentation daripada grup ni tentang Suruhanjaya pilihan raya. Inilah satu badan yang menguruskan pilihan raya di Malaysia. Pilihan raya tidak diuruskan oleh Perdana Menteri ataupun mana-mana ahli parlimen ya. Dia ada satu badan yang khas, yang bebas, yang menguruskan pilihan raya. So mari kita tengok. Okay.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Putri Nur Alisha Airin binti Ramli. My student ID is 2020 89 16 and 68.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Masalah binti Ahmad Nazari. My student ID is 2020 616 388.
My name is Wan Sumaya binti Wan Osman. My student ID is 2020 481848.
My name is Siti Aisyah binti Ismail and my student ID is 2020604284. Today, we will describe about election commission and its function in Malaysian election process.
The Election Commission of Malaysia, which is known as Suruhanjaya Pilihan Raya or SPR, is a commission set up for ensuring fair and equitable operations in undertaking the elections in Malaysia. The Electoral Commission is one of the governmental bodies in maintaining the continuation of candidate selection for elected representatives in the country's administration. Also, the establishment of Election Commission as well as its role to manage voters registration, demarcation, and conduct election clearly as enshrined in the National Constitution. Now, let's move on to the History Election Commission. The Election Commission was formed on 4 September 1957 under Article 114 of the Constitution of Malaysia, which empowers it to conduct elections for the Dewan Raya and state legislative bodies. As its establishment, the Election Commission only consisted of a chairman and 2 members, Datuk Dr. Mustafa Al-Bakri Hassan, together with Lee Oban and Tit Sings. After the formation of Malaysia in 1963 and the inclusion of Sabah and Sarawak, another member was added to represent the 2 states on a rotation basis. Dato' Abram Azikinar from Sarawak was the first member appointed. In addition, the Election Commission established a secretariat to carry out its responsibilities, which is managed by a secretary. Hence, a secretariat was set up to fulfill the Commission's functions and carry out its decisions, with a secretary met the chief administrator. The first Election Commission secretary was H. Cassidy. Next are the vision, mission, and members of Election Commission, which is SPR. So here is the vision of Election Commission, which is upholding election management institution to uphold national democracy. This is a mission of Election Commission to strengthen more efficient election management, transparent and fair, based on constitution and law to strengthen people's trust. As you can see, here are the members of the Election Commission.
Next, there are 3 main components of the election division. First is the Federal Electoral Division. The Parliamentary Constituency is another name for the Federal Electoral Division. A member of the House of Representatives represents it. It consists of a combination of several state legislative assembly constituencies, except for the Federal Territory, which only has parliamentary constituencies. The House of Representatives consists of 222 elected members. Each member is elected to represent a federal constituency. Next is the State Electoral Division. The State Electoral Division is indeed referred to as State Legislative Assembly Constituency. This is because just one state assembly member represents it. It is made up of a number of different voting districts. The state legislative assemblies for the various states consist of an elected number of members. Each member is elected to represent one state constituency only. And lastly is the voting district. For the Federal Territory, a voting district is a local constituency within a state or federal constituency. Its purpose is to make the establishment of voting stations easier. The voting district consists of a combination of several localities, which is the smallest unit in a constituency, determined based on the address on the identity card.
Next, we move to Function Election Commission. Okay, the first function of Election Commission is conduct review and redelineation of parliamentary and state constituency. Every 8 years, the Election Commission is responsible for inspecting the boundaries of state constituencies and parliamentary. Delineation is an important characteristic that will change as the transition occurs. The geography of elections focuses on the geographic component of election analysis, such as the study of space patterns and power in voting, as well as the impact of historical, sociological, economic, and local factors on voter behavior and election results in a given location. Next, the second function is setting the date after the dissolution of Parliament. Following the dissolution of Parliament, the Election Commission has 60 days to arrange elections so that the authorities can elect new elected representatives and a new government. The Election Commission will conduct a special meeting to set the election date. The two important dates are Candidate Nomination Day and Election Day. The Election Commission will also establish the date of providing an election letter to an election official, the date of election notice, the electoral register to be used in elections, and other governance and election process decision. Okay, the third function is election budget preparation. Election finances are a priority for the Election Commission. The Ministry of Finance must approve the budget allocations for elections in accordance with the requirements of the allocations proposed by the Election Commission. The first step in preparing the election budget is for the Election Commission Secretariat to hold many internal meetings at the headquarters and state-level directors to generate estimates based on particular specification. Some elements of logistic planning, transportation, and certain equipment had to be obtained outside the tender or place of quantitation in preparing for election management. Last but not least, the function of Election Commission is voting district. The Election Commission established a requirement that there is only one voting center in each voting district, in a safe and controlled environment. Staff assisting, confirming the voter's name and then provide a slip with the polling place number to the voter whose name is in the elective register at the voter's location in order to identify the voting channel. Besides, the voting district division is added the voting district in the case of an increase in the number of registered voters.
The first process of election in Malaysia is with a notice of election. After Parliament or the State Legislative Assembly is dissolved or vacancy occur, the Election Committee shall send a writ to the returning officer under the Election Act 1958. The election may be conducted by returning officer. Election notice will be made public and posted in public areas. The notice must include information such as the candidate nomination date and the voting date. If a polling date is set instead of regular polling date, an early voting date will be set for individuals who are unable to vote on the scheduled polling date. The second process is nomination. A date is set for candidates to present nomination papers to their respective returning officer. They must do so between 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on the day of nomination of candidates. The candidate must pay a 10,000 ringgit Malaysia deposit to contest for a parliamentary seat and 5,000 ringgit Malaysia to deposit to contest for a state seat. The assistant returning officer will assist the managing officer to ensure that the candidates are fit and qualified to contest in the election. A bankruptcy who has not yet been discharged, is insane, or has renounced his or her citizenship is an example of disqualification. Following the proper review, the returning officer is expected to declare the names of candidates and their parties contesting the Parliament and State Assembly election. The returning officer will announce the names of the eligible candidate after 10 a.m. Next process is election campaign. When the nomination procedure is completed and the contesting candidates are revealed by the managing officer on nomination day, the officer campaign cycle begins and it will end at midnight before polling day. Candidates for Parliament may spend a maximum of 200,000 ringgit Malaysia on campaign, and a State Assembly candidate is allowed to spend up to 100,000 ringgit Malaysia.
The fourth step is polling.
On election day, voters whose names are on the electoral roll will cast ballot at a polling site authorized by the Election Commission from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. However, some localities, particularly in Sabah and Sarawak, have shortened the voting period to minimize transportation issue and for a safety reason. There are frequently multiple polling places at each polling station. So absent voters or those eligible to vote by the short post can vote before the normal voting day, which would be led by a polling station head who is accompanied by 2 or 4 assistants. On the voting day, all marked ballot papers must be delivered to the managing officer's office by 5 p.m. The method of marking in on the finger was implemented in the 13th general election. For example, the voter's left index finger is wiped within as soon as the voter's name and identity card number are checked and confirmed. Although the Election Commission decision to use ink on polling day is a step backward, it is sufficient to assuage public worries about the voting process validity in the current situation. The 5th step is counting of votes. Once polling closes, the presiding officer will tally the ballots. He will ensure that the numbers of ballot papers received by the station at the beginning of the day is equal to the sum of paper given to voters and the number unused. Ballot with unclear marking will be set aside. After the other votes are counted, the officer will go through the unclear votes to determine if they can be accepted. Forms showing the tally of ballot will be brought to the vote tallying center, where the returning officer will announce the result for each polling station. Managing officer will announce one by one to the public, and if in doubt, he will check it with the Form 30 ballot paper statement. Last but not least, announcement of election result. The managing officer of the area shall proclaim the candidate who won the majority vote as the Wakil Rakyat of the area after completing forms 14 and 15. As a result, no one can dispute the conclusion taken. If there are any parties that are unsatisfied with the election result, they can file an election petition with the election court.
So the conclusion is that the Election Commission is the body in charge of elections. From an organizational point of view, the Election Commission has a variety of roles and responsibilities that differ from one country to another. To enable the election management body to carry out its tasks freely and equally, the Election Commission must be independent of the law and free to act and make decisions in relation to its duty and obligations. And lastly, the Election Commission is accountable for the YDPA in all aspects relating to the performance of functions. That's all from us. Thank you.
Okay, that's very good from group election commission. Mula Meda rasa macam macam ada redundant sikit dengan group lepas ni, tapi sebenarnya tak apalah sebab sebab itu yang election commission buat pun, iaitu proses pilihan raya. So comment Madam sangat professional dia punya layout tu macam pembaca berita. So ada screen kat belakang and then dekat tepi, and then yang first presenter tu siap macam kan buat tangan macam tu, mahal lah tu kan. Orang kata that is presentation skill. So Madam tengok group ni dia punya presentation tu biasalah membaca tu memang ada, because sometimes it's not easy juga untuk kita hafal semua kan, untuk kita hafal and then cakap bahasa Inggeris, tapi orang kata tidaklah nampak sangat macam membaca. Tone tu ada kan, presentation skill tu ada. So Madam percaya by the time you reach part 5 nanti mesti lagi alright. So Madam nak evaluate lah. Tengok mana kita punya ni tadi. Mana? Alright. Okay, ni ke grup Maisara, Nazari semua ni kan, betul tak?
Madam.
Betul, Madam.
Alright, so delete lah yang ni. Nak delete row ni. Alright. Okay, online introductions, very good. Okay. Mana nak cari ni sebenarnya? Tak nak highlight madam, nak cari yang kotak tu terus madam boleh buat satu kotak tu. Kat mana Kamu semua tahu tak?
Yang dekat huruf A tu, madam.
Ni? Tak. Ya
Sebelah
ke?
dia.
Ni?
Bukan. A tu.
Ni? Highlight colour ni?
Text color. Tak.
Mana? Text colour. Ni. Yang ni. Pin format ni. Nampak Allah lah. Nampak madam? Nampak macam ni je warna dia. Dia kan boleh nak satu kotak ni. Macam tu. Bukan warna ke satu kotak. Macam tu. Tak ada pun, tak jadi pun. Itu jadi. Macam mana Boleh tak seseorang ajar madam? Benda kecil macam ni pun benda jadi stres. Okay. Key concepts pun very good. Transition. Very good. Conclusion. Okay lah, boleh banyakkan lagi sikit lah kot. And secara general ni madam suka lah. Okay. Suka nampak macam professional lah. Okay, nampak lah. Nampak praktis tu ada. Macam tu lah. Okay, praktis dan planning tu ada. Macam kita buat macam ni, kita buat macam ni. Madam nampak lah tu. Okay, semua kita dapat, so dapat 24/25 lah madam bagi. Mudah-mudah je lah. Okay ke? Boleh ke?
Boleh madam. Thank you so much madam.
Sangat lah kan. Okay, very good. Okay, so kita pergi kepada next group. Ada dah ke? Mana group election process tu? Letak dulu. Letak dulu. Sementara madam memasang ni.
Saya dah kuningkan madam yang background yang group yang lepas tu.
Macam mana kamu kuningkan? Guna yang mana?
Tekan highlight yang font. Yang mana tadi? Buat try kat group Sumaya Adik.
Okay.
Semua row tu.
Ya, susah hati je madam kan. Okay.
Lepas tu dia ambil titik tepi yang 3 tu. Satu background dia punya.
Yang ni? Yang ni
kuning.
Alright. Okay, very good. Thank you. Siapa tu?
Idham.
Terima kasih Idham. Dah lah orang pertama masuk kelas. Kejap madam on ni, nanti kamu masukkan dalam tu ya. Kejap. Allah lah. Okay, ready semua Kita tengok pula presentation yang terakhir untuk PAD240 semester ni. Tengoklah madam punya bilik.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Idham bin Muhammad Zaini. My student ID is 2020829308.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ahmad Zaini Dahlan bin Kamarudin. My student ID 2020603242.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nurhani Surya binti Hamdan. My ID student is 2020453774.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Nurhani Atira binti Aziz. My ID student is 2020460124.
Implement democracy, which is a political philosophy in which policy is determined by the majority desired through a decision-making process, namely election. Elections are conducted in Malaysia to elect members of the federal parliament and state assemblies. When a majority of voters choose a specific political party, it implies that voters have certain expectation of the candidate. Next, Malaysia election procedure. Malaysia's electoral system is based on the first past the post (FPTP) system, which allows candidates to be affiliate with parties or run as independent. Voters choose only one candidate and the candidate receiving the most vote win the seat. The winner does not need to receive more than half of the vote, which make FPTP a plurality system. Other nations that use this system include Canada, the United Kingdom, Yemen, and Bangladesh.
Election law. Malaysia's election legislation is controlled by three primary status: Act 19 Election Act 1958, Act 31 Election Commission Act 1957, and Act 5 Election Offence Act 1954. The Election Commission is the primary body responsible for implementing election rules, and it has complete autonomy in regulating the conduct of elections. The Societies Act 1966 regulates political parties. The Registrar of Societies, or we call it ROS, a body within the Ministry of Home Affairs, has the authority to deny registration to a political party if the application is believed to be utilized for a lawful objective. Election types. Malaysia has two tiers of election, national and states. The election at the national level determines who will serve in the Dewan Rakyat, Chamber of Representatives. Elections are held at the state level to decide representation in the several state legislative assemblies. Members are chosen from a single member to constituencies using the first past the post method. Elections at the federal and state level are held every 5 years, with the exception of by-elections, which occurs when a member of parliament or state legislature dies, resigns, or becomes ineligible to hold a seat. State elections are sometimes held concurrently with legislative elections. However, each state has the discretion to schedule its own election. Local government elections were held during the Indonesia-Malaysia crisis, and the suspension was never removed.
The last one is supplementary element. The Federation of Malaysia is made up of 11 states in Peninsular Malaysia and the East Malaysian state of Sabah and Sarawak. The state of federal government are constitutional, monarchical and parliamentary in nature. Each of the 30 states has an unicameral state legislative assembly, Dewan Undangan Negeri, but the federal parliament is divided into two chambers, which is the Senate and House of Representatives. The Election Commission's function. Malaysian Election Commission was established with the objective of regulating and conducting election in the country. Its formation is stimulated under Malaysia's Constitution, Article 114. This body is subordinate to the Prime Minister's Department. The Election Commission has three primary functions. The first one is to conduct general election for the House of Representatives and the State Legislative Assembly, as well as to conduct special election in the event of a vacancy. Second, to conduct study and reassess the border of parliamentary and state seats at least every 8 years following the last realignment. And last but not least is to conduct voter registration and voter list review.
Next, the procedure. The elections are monitored by a 7-member elections commission that is appointed by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong on the suggestion of the Prime Minister and is appointed by the government. The process of election begins with the nomination of candidates. Normally, the Election Commission organizes nomination centres in a number of locations to facilitate the registration of candidates. The campaigning stage follows, during which time the legislation allows for campaigning to take place from the day of nomination until the day of the election. On election day, registered voter will have the opportunity to cast their ballot for their favorite candidate at designated voting venue, which may include school or community centers. For the duration of that day, all school activities are suspended. When election day falls on a weekday, a public holiday is declared in order to ensure that the greatest number of people participate. On election day, some political parties may provide transportation to and from polling place for their supporters. Outside of the voting centre, campaigning and advocating for particular candidates are not prohibited by law. Only those who are registered to vote can participate in the elections. The election commissions require that all Malaysian citizens over the age of 21 register with them before they can vote in elections. They can do so at any election commission's affiliated office or selected counter around the country. Following the closing of voting, election officials verified the ballot boxes to ensure that they are properly counted. The ballots are counted under the supervision of an election official to guarantee that the total number of ballot cast equal the total number of vote cast. It is necessary to count by hand. After the ballot boxes has been counted in the voting centre, they are transported to the counting centre for a second counting season. If all candidates agree with the result of the count, it is considered valid. The result of the election are broadcast live on radio and television stations around the world. In conclusion, this article discusses elections and the Malaysian Election Commission's role in managing the election process in Malaysia. Malaysia has had 12 general elections and several by-elections since independence. The approaching election this year is the culmination of the Election Commission years of expertise, ensuring that citizens have the right to vote for their candidates in a fair and impartial way.
Okey. Okey, komen madam. Mana? Zaini mana Zaini?
Ada sini, ada
Ya,
sini.
madam.
Kenapa kamu macam cakap tu macam mengangkat-angkat?
Tak tahu, madam. Masa tu lidah saya keras sikit.
Apa dia? Apa dia Zaini? Lidah kamu keras sikit?
Hari tu
Ketawalah kawan-kawan. Macam mana lidah kamu keras?
hari tu je, madam.
Dia macam kenapalah ke edit kan? Bagi macam asal suara macam robot je ni kan? Itulah maknanya kamu kena baiki pronunciation. Maybe sometimes kadang-kadang bahasa Inggeris tu tak dekat di hati kita. Kau lagu mana Zaini?
Betul tu, madam.
Kena macam ni lah, kamu banyakkan bercakap bahasa Inggeris dengan kawan-kawan yang gelak-gelak kat belakang tu. Kan? Mainlah gelaknya. Okay. Komen madam. Okay, madam tahu effort nak buat video bukanlah mudah kan. So madam macam cuma madam nak tegur sikit lah macam Zaini tu kena laju. Bukanlah laju macam kereta api tapi macam jangan kita ni macam apa ni, kenapa ni kan. Tapi macam tertarik nak dengar sebab jadi macam nak dengar je cakap ngangkat-ngangkat gitu, okay. Lepas tu pronunciation pun kena baikilah, determine kan. Lepas tu yang kamu jawab procedure kan. Sepatutnya procedure of election tu patut menjadi main content of the presentation, tetapi macam just satu slide and then macam buatlah 1, 2. Kalau macam tu kita akan lebih clear sebenarnya. Okay, so madam bagi markah boleh ke?
Boleh, madam.
Zaini beres dah ke tu? Siapa? Asal Zaini ada 2 suara?
Saya sekali dengan Zaini. Idham.
Idham. Kamu dah tak baik dengan Muizzuddin ke?
Ada, madam, baik je.
Ada masuk bilik ni.
Dia ada ke tu?
Dia sekarang tak ada lah.
Lepas tu kenapa dia tukar kelas?
Tak tahu lah. Sebab kelas kita orang tak ramai lelaki.
Lepas tu?
Tak tahulah, tak cukup kan kot lelaki.
Jadi saya cakap.
Untuk madam cakap bergaduh ke budak-budak ni? Tak ada tak main lah madam bergaduh ya. Pasal ni. Alah. Okey. Oh, hai. Lari habis ni. Aduh. Pening lah madam. Macam mana lari habis ni. Sekejap tengok. Fair good. Ya Allah, buruknya jadi. Lantak lah. Introduction, madam bagi good lah. Ke fair? Aduh lah. Sian pula korang. Okay. Kejap. Asal ni. Okay. Aduh. Kejap. Okay. Tak nampak pula. Okay, presentation dia bagi introduction 4, key concept 4, transitions dia bagi 3 lah kot. Conclusion or information dia bagi 3 kot. Secara generalnya dia bagi 4. Okey ke?
Okey, madam.
Okay, janganlah sedih ya. Maknanya okey, visual tu semua okey, cuma ada perkara yang kamu kena improve lagi. Macam yang cakap tadi lah. Okay, so it should be the orang kata
the main.
Yes, sebenarnya. Okay. Patut buat satu slide. Okay, pertama orang kata nomination satu ni terangkan macam tu. Okay. 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 per 25. Is it fine with you atau kamu berasa sedih?
I'm fine.
Redha. Okay, tak apa. Still boleh. Okay juga markahnya tu. Okay. Okay, still ya Allah geramnya benda-benda ni. Okay. Still boleh score untuk apa? Presentation, untuk assignment dengan menghantar report yang bagus. Okay, boleh? Boleh ke? Jangan pening benda-benda lain. Buat introduction tu sikit-sikit pasal election commission. Sikit je satu page and then yang lain tu kamu buat. Banyak-banyak. Yang paling penting proses tu. Okay, start daripada proses yang pertama sampailah announcement tu. Boleh ke?
Boleh.
Alright. Okay, so kita habislah presentation pada hari ini. So alhamdulillah happy rasanya bila presentation dah habis. Happy ke?
Happy.
Okay, so Madam harap semua janganlah kecil hati dengan Madam macam mana Madam bagi markah. Madam cuba untuk menjadi selembut mungkin. Rasa dah macam Siti Nurhaliza lah ni. Kalau tak, Madam lagi dahsyat. Okay, kalau zaman-zaman dulu. Okay, terima kasih kepada yang bantu Madam untuk ajar cara nak menguningkan ni. So Madam dah happy sebab dapat ni. And then so kita dah ada 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. 6 presentation dah pun siap and then macam mana dengan report, adakah dah semuanya hantar ataupun belum hantar, ada grup yang belum hantar lagi yang untuk minggu-minggu lepas tu? Ada lagi ke yang tak hantar untuk, okay sekejap, ni draft report nak hantar bila report dah hantar ke belum? Okay, so Dewan Rakyat dah hantar. Okay, Dewan Rakyat dah hantar. Malaysian Cabinet, alhamdulillah dah hantar. Strengths and weaknesses. Okay, dah hantar. So just group yang 2 hari ni je lah lagi yang tak hantar, betul tak? Betul ke kelas?
Betul, Madam.
Betul, Madam.
Okay, so tak apa. Alhamdulillah Madam happy semua dengan especially attitude lah. Okay, attitude. Okay, so that's very good of you lah. Okay, so bolehkah kita jumpa minggu depan untuk kita tengok pula report macam mana. Maybe Madam boleh tanda report secara live. Lepas tu kita akan buat tutorial. Because kalau Madam tanda sendiri, korang bukan tengok. Kalau kita tanda sekali, kita boleh tengok apa kekurangan, apa orang kata benda yang boleh improve. Okay tak? So kamu boleh guna untuk next sem. Okay semua?
Okay, Madam.
Okay lah, sampai kita berjumpa lagi. Okay, terima kasih semua. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Madam.
Okay, bye semua. Assalamualaikum.